Oh, look at that mouse. Damn. Okay. Yeah. It's way smoother on the 244 hertz. I've got my 60 hertz panel right here, and you can just tell already from the mouse movement, it's like way different. You can see just a big choppy trail on the 60 hertz one, and then the 240 hertz panel is just super smooth. Okay. I'm gonna like this. All right. I'm gonna play some games. I'll holler at you guys later. I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably wondering like, hey, what's it like to game on a 240 hertz panel? You know, is it everything it's cracked up to be? Should I buy one? Is it worth it? Well, thanks to Benq, who actually sent me out one of their monitors not too long ago, I can let you guys know exactly what it's like to game on a 240 hertz panel.
This is a HomageBeats.
Now, before we get started, let me just go over the monitor that I'm using. So this is the Benq Zowie XL2546. So this is a 24.5-inch monitor, 1080p, 240 hertz. It's got a TN panel on it. If you guys have ever seen like any of the CSGO tournaments or anything like that, these are the monitors that they provide at the tournament. So this is definitely on the high end in terms of high refresh rate monitors. I think if you look on Amazon right now, you can find these for about 500 bucks. And I think they've gone down a little bit since then. So this basically has all of the bells and whistles. Now the big question is, what's it like to game at 240 hertz? And the best way to describe it is like smooth or fast or smooth and fast. So some combination of that. Because the monitor is a high refresh rate, it's a 240 hertz panel, that means the image updates 240 times a second. So if you have a graphics card that can output 240 frames, you basically see a lot more of the animation than you're used to. So like with a 60 hertz panel, you know, 60 FPS may look like this in terms of movement, but on a 240 hertz panel, it's like, it's just a lot smoother is the best way I could describe it. And it's not just when you're gaming, it's when you're on your desktop as well. So like if you're just on the desktop moving your mouse cursor around, like how many trailing, you know, cursors there are, or whatever you want to call it, you can see compared to a 60 hertz panel is a lot more. Scrolling through web pages in your web browser, the scroll bar is a lot smoother. Navigating the menus in games is smoother. Just everything is just smooth. And then when you get into actual gameplay, if you have a monitor or if you have a system that can output 240 frames a second, oh my God, it's like playing a new game. Now, CSGO is basically what this monitor was built around. So if you jump into CSGO after coming from a 60 hertz panel, like no joke, it is a brand new game. Everything just looks buttery smooth. And you guys know CSGO runs on a potato, so it doesn't take much to push the frames with that. But it's just not something that you're used to seeing, man. It's just, it breathes new life into a game when you can see it this smooth. And technically speaking, because your monitor updates 240 times a second, you could see some stuff happen sooner than someone using a 60 hertz panel. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a better gamer or anything like that, just like having a better mouse with a better sensor doesn't give you better aim necessarily, but if you put all of the pieces to the puzzle together, you know, you want your limiting factor to be your skill, not the hardware that you're using. But yeah, smooth, and more smooth. I wish I could like properly show you guys on camera, but it's just not possible to capture those frame rates with the camera that I have. But everything is just, it's just better, man. That's all I can say. Now, there are certain features that you'll get with high refresh rate monitors. All of them are not going to have the same thing. But for this Benq one, for example, it's got one that's called DIAC, or Dynamic Accuracy. It's basically like kind of like a blur reduction. So if you have scenes where you're kind of panning a lot, you'll notice sometimes it's kind of blurry and hard to make out the details. Kind of like if you're, I don't know, looking somewhere in this area, something like that. And this basically, when it is enabled, will reduce the blurring so that you can kind of see the details of the motion. So right now I have it actually set to high setting. So there's an off, a high, a premium. Right now I have it on the high. So I don't know if this is going to show up on camera or not, but let's test it out. So right now it's on high. And if I take it to off, there's a little bit of a difference you can see. I think it works better with the UFO test, so maybe I'll throw that in there. But yeah, it kind of clears up some of the details when you are panning to make things a little bit clearer. So again, some monitor manufacturers may have some similar but different technology or something like that. But it's just one of those things that you'll get with a high refresh rate monitor that you're not going to get in other ones, or at least high-end 240 hertz monitors. So there's also another function in this monitor, and again, some other manufacturers may call it something different, but there's also something called AMA in this monitor. It's Advanced Motion Acceleration, which basically lowers your response time. So that can, kind of basically get rid of any possible ghosting from the image. So if you see like any previous frames or whatever kind of lagging behind or on the edge of the image, if you turn that on, it'll actually get rid of it. One of the issues I found though is that if you turn it up too high, it can actually create like an reverse ghosting or lead to like some artifacts on your image. So you kind of have to be careful with where you put that at. But if you kind of set it in the right place along with the blur reduction, you kind of get like this super smooth image where everything is crystal clear. At least that's the idea. It's not perfect. I do wish there was a little bit more adjustment, because these just have like off, high, premium. And I feel like them together, they need to be like somewhere in between. So maybe like some type of numerical value would have been nicer. Again, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on here. I'll try to insert the UFO test as well if it comes out on camera. But yeah, basically I have both of mine set to high so that I can, get kind of the best mix of blur reduction and no ghosting, but without getting like artifacts or any weird stuff like that. Sometimes it does kind of show up a little bit depending on the what you're looking at, but it's just kind of one of those things where you have to fine tune it to kind of get the best thing that you can. So as you guys can see, gaming with a 240 hertz monitor isn't necessarily about just the refresh rate. There's also some other things that come along with it, like the two things that we just mentioned. Also, a lot of monitors will have some things like I like to call Trihard Mode, where it'll allow you to basically like boost the blacks or lower the contrast so that you can see in dark areas in an FPS game. That way you don't miss somebody maybe hiding out in the shadows like a little biatch. So they've got like these preset options, at least on this Benq monitor, that can do that. So if we just switch to like FPS 1, you can see here it totally like washes out the whole image, but you can see every damn thing. So you won't be able to miss anyone. I think this is actually how the monitor came to me. And when I first saw the colors, I was like, oh, that looks terrible. But luckily you can make adjustments to the image to make it look a little bit better, or a lot better actually, I should say. So this is kind of what I roll with, my own little custom settings that I use daily, which looks a lot better in my opinion. So I'll just scroll through some of the options real quick so you guys can see, like 90 brightness, 50 that, yeah, gamma 5. I did take out a little bit of green because the image looked a little bit green. So I saw some other reviews talking about that as well, and I agree. So we've got just some things changed out there to make it look a little more normal. I don't need all that, the try-hard, not to that level at least. So I like my monitor to at least look a little bit different. But you can actually tell, even compared to like a basic IPS panel, the vibrancy in contrast and stuff is not on the same level as a basic IPS panel, but it still does look good. Like, don't get me wrong, you're not going to have any issues. I know people are probably like, oh, TN, but honestly, at least at this level, it's definitely passable. Like, I would have no issues rocking with this TN panel every day. It's just fine for me. Obviously not as vibrant as IPS, but it still works just fine. And since the monitor is so big, you know, color shift really isn't an issue when it comes to viewing angles and stuff like that. So as you guys can see, gaming at 240 Hertz is not all about the refresh rate. You also get a lot of features as well that'll make sure that your gameplay is smooth and crystal clear and stuff like that. You even get some Trihard features in case you want to go crazy with your gaming. Which, if you're buying a monitor like this, let's be real, you probably are. Try hard. Just saying. But yeah, if you are considering a 240 Hertz panel, there are some things that you do have to, you know, kind of take into consideration. Number one is, what games do you play, right? So I have a GTX 1070 in my system, and there's not a lot of games, even at 1080p, that I can hit 240 FPS at. Obviously, CSGO is one of them. The only other one I could think of off the top of my head was like Rocket League. And like Fortnite, I've got to turn it down to probably like medium or low settings in order to hit that frame rate. Obviously, Apex, you're going to have some trouble doing that. You know, it's just something to consider. You know, what games do you play? What hardware do you have? Obviously, if you are playing certain games, it's going to require higher end hardware, if that made sense. So that's just something to consider when buying a 240 Hertz panel. Also price. So there is a big price jump when it goes from 144 Hertz to 240 Hertz. And a lot of people are like, is there a difference between the two? And yes, there is. There's definitely a noticeable difference going from 144 Hertz to 240 Hertz. Now, it's not as big of a jump as going from 60 Hertz to 144 Hertz. So that's just something that you have to keep in mind when picking. You know, maybe 144 Hertz is good enough unless you're on the hardcore end. So those are just some things to consider when you are gaming at 240 Hertz. But like I said, man, it's just a super smooth experience. There's a reason that people get addicted to it and would rather have the frame rate, the high refresh rate over, you know, the resolution. So yeah, man, that's pretty much all I have to say about this. It's been a while since I've done any type of like monitor related stuff. So if I missed something, man, hey, go easy on me, but let me know in the comments. Like this video if you guys like this type of content. Put any questions you have down below for me. And yeah, that's about it, guys. I'll see you next time. I'm out of here. See you. I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably wondering like, hey, what's it like to game on a 240 Hertz monitor? Is it everything is cracked up to be? Is it worth it? Should I buy one? Well, thanks to Benq, they actually sent me out one of their 240 Hertz panels to take a look at. And basically, I can let you guys know what it's like to game on one. So that sounded stupid.